todos y los que están pegados al live, al volumen 2 de Deep in Thoughts. Como dije en la... estoy en español, yeah, English, I'll switch to English. Welcome back to Deep in Thoughts. Like I told earlier, this is our way of uniting a little bit of the wine world, the coffee world, and anything producers that really think what they're doing and passionate people all around. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel for tonight. We are live at Finca Altieri. And our first guest, obviously, and thank you for hosting, Francisco Altieri, or as we call him, Panky, second generation coffee producer. Yeah, Panky. Second generation coffee producer. I've been part of the coffee world in Panama for over 10 years, and I've seen the evolution of Altieri. They're making amazing coffees at a wonderful facility, innovating with processes. Great traceability, and thank you for having us at your farm tonight, Panky. Another round of applause for Mr. Panky in the house. Next to Mr. Panky, we have Paz Levinson visiting Panama for the first time. Thank you for joining us. The people who live under a rock and don't know Paz, she's an Argentine-born sommelier. Her magnificent skills have taken her all over the world. She currently works with Group PIC in France as Executive Vice Director. First woman to hold that position, I believe. Yes? They manage many restaurants, some with 3-star Michelin stars. She's passionate about all things liquid, coffee, tea, sake, wine, everything. Water, good water is important. She's also a writer, a judge at Decanter Awards, promoter of Argentine wines through Argentina Reloaded, educator, and an amazing voice in this beautiful industry. Welcome to Boquete, Paz. Thank you for joining us tonight. Woo! And to her left, we have Luis Antoine Luis, or as we call him in Panama, Luis Antonio or Don Luis. Toniño. He's a wine producer born in France, producing wines in Chile. He has worked at Marcella Pierre, making beautiful wines and learning to make wines that respect land, nature, tradition, and are made with minimal interventions. At the cellar in Chile, his main focus is the recovery of old vines and valuing the grape país, bringing it back to making país great again, right? And brewing that and making that in a fresh, different way. Today, Luis sells his wines around the world, including Panama. One of the wines we import in Grupo Maito. He's a great friend of the house. It's his second time in Boquete, and he came last year and instantly became a fan of Panama coffee and Panama geisha, creating many ideas on the future of Panama coffee. Great to have you back in Boquete, Luis Antonio. All right, so the idea is to ask a couple questions and interpret each of the people here in the panel. So I'll start a little bit having the people who we have today talking a little bit about the role of specialty coffee in restaurants, something Mario and I have talked about a lot in the past 10 years or more. So, one of the reasons we created this space, this Wegala Coffee and Wine, is to unite sommeliers, coffee producers, wine producers, and restaurant world in one umbrella. For years, we've spoken about the importance of having specialty coffee in fine dining. And, for years, we talked to restaurant owners, chefs, and lately the idea is communicating that through sommeliers, through people involved in the coffee, in the beverage program of a restaurant. I think it resonates more. And once you understand wine and other beverages, it's easier to understand coffee. And many restaurants really take care of every little single detail in a restaurant, the products, the service, the wine, and sometimes coffee is an afterthought, So the question is, what steps do you guys believe should be taken to create greater awareness of specialty coffee in fine dining or restaurants around the globe in general? We'll start with Paz over here.
Well, hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. And it's the first time in Panama, so I'm very moved to be here. Something that I dreamed always to visit since now 8 years working with the coffees from Panama. And I think that the question is very, very interesting. And I think it goes to the base of what, for example, a sommelier made. Or a sommelier, what is the job of a sommelier, for example? Because we are responsible of buying all the wines. And first, when I started in the Pic group, so it's Anne-Sophie Pic in France, and it's true that she found me and more for wine. But I said, no, I have to oversee everything. I cannot sleep well if we are not having excellent in everything, because I cannot do very good wine, but then all the rest not. So for me, that was very important. She was very happy because she loves coffee, so very happy to hear that I was so interested, so into other beverage and not only wine. But when I arrived to France, my first job was in a 3 stars Michelin in Paris. And sommeliers don't have the right to touch tea or coffee, for example. So was not our business. And this restaurant was very famous, excellent food, excellent meal, excellent everything. But sommelier, it's not your business to serve coffee or tea or other beverage. So I was very impressed with this because it's true that I study a lot for competitions, sommelier competitions. So coffee was one of the subjects I want to study, and I study more the names, the regions, the famous regions, not too deep, but to know how to answer all the questions. So I was interested in tea, coffee, and because the place where I study in Argentina is a chef that is a sommelier. So she knows that everything is important in a restaurant. So first time in France, this was the first vision, if they don't drink wine, don't go to the table. And for me, that was shocking. And I learned a lot about everything, the service, French service, but I was not happy not serving other beverages. And when Anne-Sophie proposed me to be in the Pic group, I was very happy because I said, I need a chef like this. In Pic group, I can go much deep in all the subjects, and coffee was one of those. So what I'm saying all this, and sorry it's a bit long, but to understand that normally a wine director don't take care about coffee. And for me, the most important is to be aware that this is very important, that yes, you have to be responsible for good coffee, for good tea, for good water, everything what the client drinks is our business. But yes, you have to visit more regions, study more, be more interested. And so it's hard work, but that is so important. So I think that the first thing is to change the pattern of how the sommelier job is. Now it's much more expanded this, but maybe when I started like 20 years ago was not the case. And then in France, I see a big change now. And for sure, Anne-Sophie Pic, she was working with high quality coffee when I arrived. So it was easy, to go deep in very high quality coffee. And thanks for Hippolyte Courtier that she was working with since many years ago. And what is important, every year we do trainings in the restaurants for coffee. So what I'm trying to do in the sommelier world, and we call it plural sommelier. So we are not only wine, it's much more large, the spectrum, is to be behind all these trainings and to contagious, to really pass the intention and the passion for other beverages to the young sommeliers. And I think it works. But You have to do a lot of work with that.
Thank you, Paz, for that answer. Anton, how do you feel about it coming from a wine region that you kind of explored on your own, also selling a rare item, if you will? How do you feel about getting coffee in the restaurant and treating it a little more like wine?
First of all, thank you very much to receive me here. I'm very happy to be for the second time in Boquete and with this nice group. Well, I didn't know anything about coffee a year ago because what I know about coffee was what we say in Chile, no es café and café café. Mostly what I know about Chile. In France, it was different. It was espresso or noisette. And so my knowledges were very poor. But for many years, of course, I've been working in wines and I've been following the different evolution in different beverages that they're serving in the restaurants. And we have this talk, I will resume this way. We are in Chile a wine producer, and we are in Europe wine producer mostly, and there is region who are coffee producers. And we have the sommelier, which is in charge of serving the wines. And of course, the beverage list is more than only the wine. Because if you have a bad water, you have a bad wine. You have a swipe of bad water in your glass and you have a good wine, you can blow the wine easily. It's not only the message you want to send or the link you put in between a food, a dish with a liquid. It's much more that what I imagine we are following around this kind of emotion. But in our region, we are drinking wines in a large, big glass. And I was telling you last year that here we are in a region of coffee. It's not to put the wine in the coffee cup, but it's the wine who has to be adapted to the coffee region instead of adapted the coffee to the wine region, because we are not a wine region here. So the approach is sensitive, and that means I'm sure that for the specialty coffee, maybe I do wines with no sulfur, no chemicals. We are lucky in Chile for that. I try not to use sulfites to conserve the wine. It's always a risk. But what I purchase there, it's the emotion. And in the services, that's what we expected, to create something simple.
All right, thank you, Marcel. So let me turn around following that idea. We've seen like a big change in values in winemaking and coffee making in the past 10, 15 years. With practices in some wineries and also in the coffee world, adopting a little bit of the wine technique, especially of fermentation. Some have played with carbonic maceration. They're taking a little bit of technique from wines. How do you think those techniques have impacted the coffee in your farm that you use nowadays with the cold room, with fermentation? And where do you see those processes going in the next 5 to 10 years with more control, Panky?
So, thank you very much for having us also.
Thank you for having us on the beautiful farm.
So it's processes in the coffee have sort of, it's been very short, and we've been in Panama. We've been, I think all farmers have been courageous enough to try different things, just because there's not a lot of data going backwards in to understand what should be done and what shouldn't be done with coffee. So I can tell you that I have damaged a lot of coffee trying different things. But I mean, at the beginning, I would say the beginning of the fermentations, I would say like the special fermentations began probably 10 years ago. Yeah. The processes were very harsh. So they were very, like when you cup the coffee, the processes were very, you could tell that they were very different from the original. And the way we play with it was that we did processes called anaerobic slow dries, that where we put coffees in a tank for a couple days and before drying, and somehow that created an ambience of bacteria with no oxygen, and that created a certain flavor profile in the coffee that most, a lot of people sort of enjoyed. But the way I saw it, like looking at it from 50,000 feet up in, it's, the processes began starting to go back to the roots, to have a simple, straightforward process to honor the terroir. But still, we have processes that enhance the good things for coffee here in Panama. So, for example, things that we're doing now that we didn't do 10 years ago is prolonging the drying of the coffee as much as we can, sometimes between 30, 40, 50 days, and creating an environment where when you dry it, the fermentation doesn't appropriate from the coffee profile, but instead it enhances the goods from it. Knowing how much time, it's very difficult, and that's why I said we damage a lot of coffee, because you need to understand up until which point you can push the coffee without it, pushing back in ways that you don't want it to be. But yeah, and going to the next part of your question, I truly believe that the processes are going to become more and more in understanding what the traits or what the things that make good coffee good or that makes it taste good, what are they? And I mean biologically and chemically, and understanding how to eliminate the things that are not so good for coffee, and pushing the things that are really good for coffee to really try to make it as good as possible. I don't know if that...
I think that's the north. People are going a little bit back to cleaner coffees and coffee with a story, not so much processes that don't tell a story of a particular place, right? So I'll rebound that question to you, Luis. You've been here last year. You saw some processes. We've been talking the whole year a little bit about some ideas. What's your take on that?
Well, from my last word was simple, so I took it back. But the thing is that simple means the common sense. I finished for the services. The common sense that you say café de especialidad, coffee, specialty coffee. Finally, the job here maybe of the people who is in charge in the wines or beverage, maybe to say not natural wine, specialty wine. In a way that makes easier to the people to teach, that to make too many differences, because you explain situation here, and for the people who's working in Panama, they can visit it. They rarely go to Chile, and they will maybe go to Burgundy to visit, and so to acquire the knowledges. So from there, I came last year, and I forgot the question, of course.
About process. the process you
the
saw.
Process. Sorry. Let's say, los artistas, the process. I'm making wine, so I understand the wine process before the grape is harvested, and actually that's what I like. That the viticultura, the cultivate the grapes, and also try to make, in the situation where I am, wines with at least trying not to lose or depreciate the water, or also the stem of the grapes. So all the things that we are harvesting, we try to transform it. The objective is the wine, but we still have some other things that we can distillate, and we still have some other things that we can compost to reintroduce in the vineyard. That's important, and I think that in the coffee, there is a lot of people who are caring about, after the harvest, or how to transform it to the good product to be roasted and to be served as a coffee, like the black one. But I imagine all the other things who are like the mycelium, the water who wash the grain, and the water, how many level of sugar it is. Why don't we try to find some issues for that? I understood that in the big companies it's impossible because it's super dirt. Instead, at the scale of a small company like Altieri and other specialty producers, there might be more things to do with those stuff. And that's what we're talking about together. And
Thank you, Luis. Going in that same vein, you know, and you mentioned a little bit, coffee has a bigger challenge in a way than wine because most producers, like Panky here, coffee is exported green. So you still depend on a roaster and a brewer. And also coffee is perishable. It doesn't age like some wines. Do you guys think, and talking, you know, as a producer, there are byproducts in coffee that could be made by the producer, or ways to brew coffee by the producer to the final user and eliminate a little bit of that guesswork by a barista, or have that risk? I don't know if you want to take that one first pass. Let's go with Louis. We were talking about this today. But some byproducts from the fermentations that you could make different products that could eventually end up final table, or how to eliminate that guesswork from a barista or a roaster and do a bad job for the producer.
I'm not sure if we have to put the barista away. No, I don't think so. My part is more in the transformation. My questions are, what can we do? Or I'm sure that many people have studied to do some stuff around, but there are always a new page to discover and to write. So for this question of the services or the roaster, I don't have enough experience to give you a good answer, I think.
No, I understand a little bit the question. I think that there are a lot of, yes, the roaster is so important and can change so many things about the coffee. So that's why we need to have, this, as we taste wine, we taste coffee, and we normally were helped to search certain things in coffee and be able to form our palate and way of tasting. But for sure, I think that there is a lot of products that we can do, bottled products. And we've been working with Hippolyte and Sophie, for example, coffees with other aromas, because Anne-Sophie is chef, so she's creative and she likes to enhance or mix. And that was in a bottle, and that was always the same, it was consistent, and it was tasting great. I can imagine also doing that in a pure way, not mixing with other aromas. So I think there are ways of serving, as we see in the industry of tea, because you can see some very nice bottles of tea without any process, just cold brew tea and then bottle. I think for coffee, this is possible. And we saw also the scene of the cold brew, but I think there are many other things we can do, and we work a lot with coffee in the mixology, in the cocktails, and we have some coffee-based cocktails that we preserve and that we can even we pre-batch and we serve and carbonate and do many other things. So in that way, we can preserve the taste. But then I think that the beauty of the different roasters, and to have people that has ideas about how to roast and where to take those coffee to show the terroir is also interesting. It is more difficult, I know, because it's another variable, it's another step. But I think that traveling around when we are doing the openings of the restaurants or the boutiques or the coffees, to go to meet other roasters or see how they work, for sure is interesting, but we need to have a good base or be able to learn and to taste and see what you want, no, and what you need. Also, I want to add something about the processes because I think it's interesting in the wine world how, for example, carbonic maceration or these techniques can homogenize a style, and it can take a little bit the notion of terroir and talk about more the process than the terroir. And that we've seen a lot in the wine world. So it's more the process and the style. And or whole clusters, for example, everybody's using whole clusters or everybody's using infusions. And it takes a little bit the creativity or you know, what your terroir needs, what process needs. So I think in coffee, when we taste a lot of, you know, very funky coffees or very, it takes a little bit the terroir away, and it can be very good and very, for certain things that we prepare, that we need, I don't know, red fruits, very cherry, but I think that are coffees for special servings or pairings. But for terroir, when we want to see the terroir, we try to look for the cleanest process, you know, to see through. And that's why it's important to identify terroir and identify the process. But, well, it's that I want to add.
That's a great comment. And like you said, there are some coffees that speak like a conversation piece, a heavy fermentation. I've, you know, served it to some people who have no idea coffee can get there. But at the end of the day, you want to, like I said, you go for a coffee that you know where it's from and there's identity in that coffee, no?
Yes, what it brought, I think that these very intense flavors, you know, when you find strawberries and for someone that don't likes coffee or someone that is always tastes this burnt coffee, when you serve this cup, they say, okay, this is not coffee, this is amazing. Because people like to find that the beverage has a lot of intensity, has a lot of aroma, and so for them is better because you can really look for the taste, you smell it and you feel it. It's like you know, high volatile in wine, or people like those wines normally because you can recognize things. They're intense in the nose, but so highly anaerobic process or very fermented can help also to take people to come to the coffee world and say, look, you have such a diversity of aromas now in the coffee, and it's not only the espresso at the finish of the meal that you are used to. So.
Yeah, in my experience throughout the years, people just starting out in coffee as an enthusiast usually go for naturals or fermented coffee because they're intense and easier to understand and pick out the descriptors, and eventually graduate to cleaner washed or honey processed coffees. That's 100%.
The fermented coffees are usually pretty specific.
Yeah.
I would say like the more specific you can be on a flavor, that would be like, you know, like the punch in the face type coffee. Like, you know, it tastes like strawberry, not like red fruits, but like strawberry or like apricot, or those are the ones that usually people with very little experience kind of get their attention. And what I've found is that easily, if they get into the coffee world, many of them start to appreciate the cleaner ones as they go.
Right.
The more complex, you know.
There's a time and space for everything, no? Yeah. Almost anything. So talking a little bit about the journey of Panamanian coffee. Last year, as we know, Esmeralda sold for over $30,000 a kilo at the auction. And thinking of coffee without sounding a little conceited as a luxury and a very specialized product, what do you guys think is a way to present a coffee of that level? Like coffee historically has been served in the morning at a coffee shop. Where do you guys see the future, aside from what we talk in restaurants, how else do you guys see that coffee being served and honoring a coffee of that level? Let's start with Banky.
There's a lot of ideas that I have in my head, but I would say the number one thing would be at the source. I think honoring where the coffee came from. I think is that that much more meaningful. Even when people come here, they understand. Tasting the coffee outside of Panama is one thing, but whenever you come to the source and you see the effort that people put into the bean, it makes it that much more special. And after paying 30,000 or 5,000 or 700 or whatever it is in the auction, I truly believe that being at the source or being able to be at the source like the $30,000 buyer did. He came to pick it up and try it here, was amazing. And I mean, we can talk about all these events that we can do anywhere or whatnot, but to me, the purity is to actually, or hopefully, people to be able to come or whoever the buyer is to really live the experience at the source.
Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, many. But no, I think it's very important for coffees, and especially we use a lot of Panama coffees, and thanks for Hippolyte that bring great coffee and very good roaster as well. So we were working a lot on how to present coffee in the restaurant, and for me something that always made me noise is that coffee was at the end. Before leaving, okay, you have coffee, maybe yes, maybe no, maybe you don't know. So for me, it was so important to move the coffee away from the last thing you do in the restaurant. And to really look for pairings, especially because we specialize a lot in a non-alcoholic program, but not only. But for me, it was very important I have this great coffee, how to present it. And I need to present it like the finest wine. And I need to train people in the restaurant or how to brew it, how do we dose, how we present, in which glass we're serving, with what we're serving. So with the chef, we taste food, we taste the coffee, we do the pairings. We find that coffee is amazing for all the umami flavors, for savory. The meat is amazing, different meats, different kinds of coffee. So this test we do with Hippolyte as well. So what I like to work with Anne-Sophie Pic and in 3 stars Michelin, and that we don't have limit. And we can present the best coffee in the best way with the best pairing. And I'm convinced that this moves the coffee away from the end and also enhance the quality and brings another experience to the guests that they never thought about it. And sometimes the pairing with the coffee is better with the wine, but don't tell anyone. Depends the coffee, but we do this taste all the time, like wine and coffee, different glasses, different temperatures, different extractions, or Chemex or Paragon, and you really can take the client to show another level and what you are doing here in Panama, or how the people that is behind high quality coffee. We want to show that. We want to show the passion, to show, and the taste, the elegant cup with the best food in the world. So I think this, I'm very privileged to be able to work with great coffee, and also that the chef, she's so happy to see these great coffees and to feel the coffees. So we have a large program, and coffee has a special place that I cannot take it away from any of the pairings I do. So I need I need the specialty coffee and the more expensive coffee. Not because it's expensive, but we want the quality and we want to show the quality. And I want to have the best pairing, non-alcoholic pairing in the world, and I need these products as well.
That's amazing, Paz. Thank you. And thank you for doing that for Panama Coffee. That's beautiful. And Hippolyte also for hooking it up. We've noticed, in the past 10 years, we've been serving coffee at a restaurant in Maito. People have a different mentality when they're in a tasting menu or in a restaurant setting. A little more time in your hands than a coffee shop. A lot more receptive, and it's a great moment to introduce great coffee in that perspective, right? Do you have any thoughts on this, Luis Antonio, and other ways people can enjoy coffee? Hello.
The part I prefer is that finally, like we do, we can drink the wine outside the table. And let's drink coffee at the table. And that's what I've learned in Boquete. Thank you, Paz. Now our lunch at home will be safer. I prefer morning wine and then lunching coffee.
No, what is interesting is that when we started the non-alcoholic program in all the restaurants, they were very afraid. I mean, in big hotels, when we have the restaurant in the hotels, they see the numbers, they see, oh, but we are going to sell less wine, and if you do non-alcohol, and numbers show totally the opposite. Like in the 3 stars, the sales of wines went super high, and the sales of non-alcoholic were super high. So everybody can come to the restaurant and have a great experience. And I think that is the change in the experience and in the service-wise. And we are not afraid of serving non-alcohol because everybody can have, a great experience. So more people is coming, and more people is drinking wine and spending more money.
Everybody's invited to the party, right? Beautiful. I want to open the floor for any questions of our amazing panel up here. Anybody have any questions to contribute? Any doubts? Everybody's clear? We're going to do a test later. I'll ask you guys one last question, very simple but deep question. What does coffee mean to you personally? And we'll go in this order.
Well, to me, we are a farm that's probably 25 years old. We don't have a 150-year story like many of the other great farms around this region have. So to me, it was a matter of a choice. It was a matter of, okay, we have this plot of land, and my father bought this plot of land, so what do we do with this plot of land? And he started kind of gazing at coffee because he figured that the plot of land that he bought was right next to Wilford's. I think you're going to be there tomorrow. Yes. So it was a choice. It was something that made us very attracted to the actual idea of specialty coffee back when we started. But to me, it's evolved as we got more and more into coffee, and the things that you can do and the experiences that you can provide to people and the feedback that you get back from people. To me, it's amazing. It's something entirely amazing to talk about. It's interesting. It's all about the story around the tree and around the bean. I think it's just so much more than the bean. And the more we get into it, the more complexity we bring out of it. So I'm extremely happy, and it's to me more than a hobby. Or than a job. It's more a passion. So that's how I could summarize it.
Thank you, Panky. What about for you, Paz?
For me, it's another door to amazing experiences of tasting and smelling and feeling. So it's a super important beverage and agricultures. And what I like is that, as we do in wine, to visit the farms, to visit the producers is the most important. It takes time because for sommeliers, where we're moving around all the time, we're vineyard after vineyard all the time, and maybe if you're not living in America or next a coffee place is a trip that really you need to program and see how you do it and that. So it takes a little bit longer, maybe, but it opens so many doors. It opens so many experiences in the restaurant, and I think it's so important to show to the new sommeliers, servers, all the restaurant business how important is coffee. And that's why it's the battle, I mean, of having the high quality always. I mean, the restaurant that you want to have with the quality you want to serve, and coffee is there, and it's so important. So, yes, I think it's fantastic world. So,
Thank you, Bas. Louis Antoine.
Well, to me, coffee opens new horizons and a link to new friendship, and also to meet the people who is behind the producers, the growers, the workers. That's this legacy that I have been following and who amazed me in Chile with our 300 or 400 years of history making wines. But here the story is new and there is already a stimulation, and I hope that this stimulation is following up to open and to make that this coffee is be shared, because everything in life is sharing. Like you receive us, thank you. Have a good time.
Beautiful. All right, if there's no more questions, we're going to continue with the rest of the event today. Not before thanking Panky and the whole Altieri team. Roger over there, thank you so much for hosting us today, guys, at this amazing, beautiful space. Thank you, Paz. Thank you, Anton. Happy coffee drinking. Cheers.